My hands are tied because it would be insufficient to try and type this out. Anytime a society demands complete conformity for any reason, it will fall. And that's because there will be a massive rebellion because nobody wants to conform completely to any one ideal. We can't. Our personalities are built of subroutines, smaller personalities. So it will fall. Whenever we demand complete equality between the sexes, we know for a fact that men are men, women are women, but there are subtle nuances, or not so subtle differences between the sexes. Period. I am part of the queer community. I can go and get... I will go get that. I fly this proudly. Now, that being said, I'm a very feminine man. I would say effeminate, but that doesn't... I'm a very feminine man, okay? I cry over everything that is beautiful and cute, and I cry over everything that is sad and disgusting. No, this wasn't... I haven't planned anything going from the top of the head here. If you try and divide those same people, they will react in exactly the same way. There will be a revolution, and in both cases, that society, that culture, that nation, or empire will collapse because there's not enough diversity for it to maintain itself. That's what evolution is. Growth through diversity. And we have that extra ability to understand in the way in which we do. We're humans, you know. We have that extra thing. That doesn't mean that we're any more advanced morally. And morality is based on what is right and wrong for a given individual, and the circle that they're a part of. Now, if you have a society that is sitting here demanding that everybody follows, it doesn't matter if it's the 10 tenets of Satanism or the 10 commandments of Christianity. I keep saying you, whoever we are, as a given culture, will rebel. I have to keep repeating this because it is pertinent. When we demand total equality for the sexes, the races, the social classes, we don't have a society. Society is defined. Any social structure, by necessity, by its very nature, has to have a top and a bottom. Whether it's a family structure or, you know, a nation at large. I'm not saying that we should not have equal pay for equal skills. If I, as a man, am incapable of doing performing the same job with the same quality as a woman, doesn't matter race. Race is actually not a thing. Races within species cannot breed. So race is not a thing with human beings. You can have species. Well, we have species, and they cannot breed with a different species. Races within a species cannot interbreed. It's not the same, only because that part of that species is different enough to be unbreedable. That does not generate necessarily, in this context, the same result. I mean, look at the European cuckoo. All the males are the same race. Females have different species. They cannot interbreed, and it's more complicated than what the point of this video is, but they can't. You know, you'll never find a cuckoo that will be able to generate an egg, a blue jay mimicking cuckoo that will be able to generate the egg that replicates what the egg of a dove looks like, or a pigeon rather looks like. Those are different races. Those females cannot generate those eggs of a different race that replicate a different species that is particular to what their genetics dictate. But the males can breed with whatever race of female cuckoo they want, or that they're accepted by, rather, which is the proper way to say it, because that's the truth. But with things like this, you know, this being the statue, it's, if we demand that everybody follows the Ten Commandments, we will have a lot of progress made from that. But there's that tipping point where we reach the zenith of the arc, and it's no different than an overpopulation, because it is an overpopulation. Once we have so many people reach that top of the arc, it starts to fall back down. We need that difference, and it's not that we need that in order to survive. It is endemic to any social structure. Again, whether it's familial or cultural, or even within ourselves, we have different hierarchy. We have a hierarchy within ourselves. You know, some people like money more than laughter. Some people like sex more than life itself. Some people love music more than food. There's a hierarchy within ourselves which is endemic to anything that is living. Otherwise, evolution couldn't happen, and there would be nothing living in the first place. There would be no chance for even the most basic chemical reactions to happen. It's on every level of everything that you can possibly conjure within your mind. Now this, as I tried to express before, this being that statue, yes, it's put there for offensive purposes, and that offensive purpose is there because it is trying to make equal, you know, the value of good versus evil. That's invented within us. Now, again, as I put in text in the replies to that post, to this post, we only give it the power, the power of something good or holy by acknowledging it as such. If we sit there and call something evil, maybe it's a statue of Satan and a fascinated child. If we give it the power of the devil that it's supposed to represent, then it becomes that. You're playing God. It's there as a piece of artwork, as a piece of offensive artwork to prove a point. That point is that we are equal, but we have different points of view. That's not to say that some points of view are not bad. Yes, anything that is bad is something that is ungood to a given individual or society or culture or species or planetary system. But that's why I say in the text response that this is, it's pointing toward a bigger point regardless of what you believe. If you're a Satanist, or if you're a Buddhist, or if you're a Christian, you should be able, whoever we may be, should be able to draw from what is seen as bad. Because, again, whatever is not beneficial to the support of life to a given individual or anything beyond the individual is unarguably not good. Those of us who are offended by, those of us humans who were offended by the satanic statue can either choose to ignore it, or we can protest it, or we can take from it the thing that the book that this specific culture is calling good. We can take that and we can, again, like I said in the text, call God out from the stones. The stones will preach the very name of God. The stones will preach the very name of God. Even if there are false teachings, they still, if you have the eyes and the ears, and I'm not saying that I do have the eyes and the ears, or the eyes or the ears, but if we have that, the open-mindedness to see what is really happening, be totally aware of our surroundings, on every level, inside, outside, and interpersonally, which is what this thing is. The statue is an interpersonal thing. It is meant to be offensive because they are offended. They feel as if they've been made lesser. But what we fail to realize, by and large, is that the devil is us. God is us. And if we choose whoever we may be, whoever one is, if one chooses to believe, is what I should say. If one chooses to believe, if one chooses, is going to set off some I get that. If we happen to believe that one thing is good or one thing is bad or anything, if we choose to put so much faith into that idol, we negate everything else. We are literally and figuratively one with the universe. The same amounts, the same proportions that hydrogen exists throughout the universe, the same proportion is within us. Hydrogen is the most abundant thing in the universe. Also, the most abundant thing within us. And the proportions filter down exactly the same way. Helium we can't use, so we cannot count that. It doesn't interact with anything. It's inert. So it's unusable. We could count that as, I was going to say we can count that as an observer, but that's a different subject, and it's not what I mean, even if I go through that whole discussion. But there is a personal God, but the devil is in the details. We neglect the fact that we are ones who not only are the beatific vision, but we are also the ones who fail to see the beatific vision in anything that we see that is outside of a godly experience. And we discount the mystical experience. And what that is realizing that everything is exactly one. And we can go into the Hindu thing of non-dual and all that, but everything is everything. I mean, you did not come into the world or the universe. You didn't. You did not. You came out of it. The same way a tree does, the same way The same way sunshine comes from the sun. It comes out of the universe. It doesn't emerge into it. It's not how it works. And you know this. And I'm not talking to anybody specific, but you know this. You were not made. You were grown. Now, all that being said, let me loop back to, in a choppy cut fashion, back to the statue. The statue is not evil. And if we demand that everybody believe that that is evil and have that thing removed, I'm not saying that there are not immoral ideas behind the concept of the entity of Satan. The trick that the devil has played is to convince the world that it doesn't exist, and people misinterpret that by, oh well, yeah, we know he exists, and he's high. There's no sufficient way to put that. There's no satisfactory way within me to put that, but I will go cheap and say that the devil does exist, and he's convinced the world so clearly, so cleverly, that he doesn't exist by showing himself in plain sight and allowing statues to be built. And I'm not saying this is a choice by a personal, meaning person-like, supernatural being. Supernatural just means very natural. But above nature, something that is not artificial, which means man-made, not something that we can see. Superficial, not superficial. Supernatural means just beyond something we can understand. It is something that is very understandable. It is within us. It's within you. It's within me. I am Satan. And God knows that. And so are you. Very, very much. Equal to me. But I think I can blow you out of the water with that one. But we are also God. I mean, we can speak things that have never existed before into reality. And we don't have to use our words to do that. I'm off on a tangent. It is relatable, and I think I've just worn out the usefulness of that tangent. I trust that you've gathered my meaning, and I trust that you've gathered my meaning and gotten bored with it because I've over-explained it. If not, I can't help you. I can't help you. But again, this whole thing, this is what happens when we allow freedom of speech and religion. Yeah, of course, that's the point of allowing it. Diversity, that's evolution. If we don't, we stagnate. We inbreed so badly that we fail and die. And no, I'm not talking about sex. I'm not being rude, so don't react as if I'm being rude. That statue has nothing. It's metal and rock put together in a certain shape by a certain person or group of people to make a point. Yes, that point is offensive. So is the Christian religion. It offended everything else that came before it. And I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm saying that it's offensive. And the same thing with Satanism. If you take it and look at what they're saying empower yourself. They never say discount the rest of reality or to disrespect the universe itself. They never say that. They never have. They never will. Anybody who does that is doing a buzzword, to use modern terms. They're just doing a buzzword thing to make you listen and to get attention pointed toward themselves. But that should also tell you where the truth is, because we have that red flag system. Unless we've blinded ourselves or have been blinded so badly by something before us that we can't see it. A lot of times we choose not to see it because change, as certain memes that have been reposted have stated, change is painful. It is easier to remain the same. So to sit here and say, take it down. Why can't we sit here and have one next to the other? And go, well, these are the things that are negative about this thing, and these are the things that are negative about this thing. Because they both have negative aspects. Why do you think so many things have been discounted, even from the authorized version, which I'm sure that everybody who is going to respond to this or has already responded to this is going to refer to? They're going to refer. Let's drive it home even further. The number 666 we found to not be the actual number. There are variations. The oldest piece of paper that we've ever found that refers to the number of the beast calls it 616. And I'm telling you now, I know for a fact, and it's been released by the people who do the different editions of the King James Bible. They're going to tell you in a footnote that 616 is another viable variation of the interpretation for what we have found to be 666. 616 is also there. There's also a footnote within that text that allows for a blank space between the two sixes. We don't know why yet, but we have all of the texts from the same era from a specific garbage heap that was found back in the late 1800s, which may not count to you, but reality is reality. Facts are facts. I'm not saying that 616 is true definitively. I'm saying that there's room for variation. In the same way that we leave out the vowels have been left out from the name Yahweh, there's a reason that certain numbers were left out because of the whole numerology. Stop giving the devil his power. I'm not saying don't give the devil his due. Stop giving him his power. But realize you are the devil. And I can see myself here, right off over here on this corner, talking to myself too. You are the devil. So am I. You are God. No differently than any other aspect of anything in existence or beyond what we know to be existence. You are equal to that, and you are equally opposite to that. As above, so below. Stop playing the games. It's a piece of religious art. We cannot sit there and say that it's not art because it wasn't there first. It doesn't matter when it showed up. Art can be offensive and beautiful at the same time. Why not? Why can't we recognize both? Why can't it be beautifully offensive or offensively beautiful? And I'm not trying to do some philosophical or Zen mind game thing. It's dialectism. And that's how people come down to the point of truth without using, number games, pure mathematics, or sciences such as physics. Doesn't matter. If we really chop up and look at what is true on both sides, we will grind down to what the core of the message is, whatever that message may be between the two. They are whatever two opposing messages are there are going to center around, are going to be centered on. They're going to have a common core. That's centered around. They're going to have a common core. they're going to debate that common core. That's what dialectism is. That's how we can know good from evil. And, you know, that's how I can know me from you. If you or I had never been taught that I am me and you are you, you would understand, whoever you are. I'm not saying anybody specific, but you would understand. We would understand that the same process that shines the sun is the same process that beats our heart. We can go into the different little, one's electricity and one's nuclear fusion. Yes, but the same process allows both things to happen. And to quote Alan Watts, if I am my hand, which I am, then I am the sun. Well, why is that true? Because look at your breathing, which is why Zen and meditation, well, Zen means meditation. Meditation is focused on breathing, initially and primarily. Do you breathe, or does it breathe you? Or is breathing just a process that happens, regardless of whether or not you take control of it? I mean, you walk downhill, you're going to walk a little bit faster than if you walked on a flat plane, on a plane, or on a horizontal plane, or on a vertical plane, uphill. It's going to act the way it acts, but you can take control over it and enhance or decrease as you see fit, given that you have the ability to do so. Sometimes certain processes, meaning entities or beings or things, don't have control, but that's the way it is, and they won't know any better unless they have the ability to observe and understand otherwise. I mean, when a dandelion seed blows away and you catch is blowing in the breeze, and if you catch it, you feel this tugging against it. You feel, yeah, the wind is pulling away this seed. But also, that seed is designed by process of attrition or elimination or evolution, whatever word you want to use. The design, the structure with which that seed and carrier is built uses the wind more smartly than we do. I mean, we move with our own energy. The dandelion seed uses the wind. The wind is there now based on how that dandelion seed is designed. The wind is now there in order to carry it away, which is also to say, in the same way, for the same reason, that the wind is, I mean, the seed is using it. The wind is there for it because the seed is designed for use of the wind, to be used by the wind. Or it's the same thing. Why am I missing words? This should not be that big of an issue. Granted, this issue has to be there. Absolutely. If we did not have this issue, we would have been stagnated a long time ago. There would have been no progress within the process. So this is absolutely necessary. Offensive as it might be, it is absolutely necessary for life as we know it. But it is absolutely necessary. No, necessary evil. It's not as Evil is necessary only in the sense that it grants us the ability to know what's good. It is not evil for a lion to kill its own cub to keep its bloodline. I'm sorry, I misspoke. It is not evil for a lion to kill the cub of the male that he has just vanquished in order for him to carry on his own bloodline further than the male he just vanquished. But if you come and do that to my kid so that you can have more babies with the female that I was with, that's suddenly evil. It's evil because it hurts my heart, it kills my wife, and you're also... I'm sorry. It's evil because it hurts my heart, and you may have even killed me. You've also killed my kid, and now you're fucking my wife. That's evil. But if a lion does it, it's just nature. You've never wanted to kill somebody just to make your life a little bit better? And I'm not trying to make moral justifications. I'm asking a question. It's in us. That evil is there. We are the devil. And we can speak into existence anything within the realms of possibility that we choose. And if the effort is put forth, that means the intention is strong enough. I mean, sometimes the wind will intend to blow a certain direction, but there's a wall there, so it has to forcefully, it has to force itself around it. And that's misspeaking, because it doesn't have to force itself around it. Forces endemic to nature push it around the wall, unless that wall is just the wrong shape or size. And by wrong, I mean it doesn't allow the wind to progress in the direction in which it was going. Intended, not willful intention, just intended, meaning the tendency with which is emergent from the very nature of the wind. Fluid dynamics, which is how we run. We are a process. Again, to quote Alan Watts, because he said it more succinctly than I care to think about right now, in order to generate, the same idea. You're a process. There's basically nothing left of you that was there when you were born. Yes, there are certain elements. And he, with that, put forth the whirlpool. The whirlpool is a definite entity. I mean, there are plenty of permanent whirlpools everywhere. Many places, not everywhere, but many places around the world. The consistent element, the constant factor, that element C, the C, E equals mc squared. The C wouldn't be light in this context. It would be water. And motion. I really mean just water here, but motion's part of it. But I'm trying to split hairs in order to not have other people split hairs. The whirlpool is there. The thing that is constant is the water and the shape. I mean, your eyes are always the same. Your brain is always the same. But the rest of you changes. And you progress through the process of living. For all intents and purposes, you're not going to find the same drop of water in the whirlpool twice. I mean, you might, but whatever. That's rainfall. But you're a process. And part of that process is being offended and offending. Part of that process is being joyful over things around you. But where we fail, most of us fail, to find joy is in the things that are wrong, because it points out the things that are right, the necessary evil. It is again, emergent from us that we make a big deal out of this. But it is also emergent and of necessity that we pay attention to what the fuck is happening rather than be offended by what is happening. Pay true attention. If you see that thing as evil, whoever you may be, use it to recognize the good. And it might be more beneficial to leave that statue there so that we can go look at these two ideas. Here's the history behind these two ideas. Let's draw our own conclusions. I mean, hell, the very Bible that whoever these people may be, and I know that there are two specific people watching this. I would hope that that anybody who comes across this post watches this video. But two people who were offended by the statue in a true sense might want to take the opportunity to take both sides. I mean, and to take a look at both sides and point out both sides. Hey, here's this point of view. Here's that point of view. Here's the good of this. Here's the good of that. And in fact, they both say to take care of yourselves. They both say to trust yourself. They both say to trust in nature itself. And don't fuck around and hurt anybody else, because that's not good. That's bad. That's immoral. That's the very nature of culture and society and how we survive together as such. I'm not saying to not be offended in your heart, but take that offense for the pile of shit that it is in order to grow the seeds of good. Leave it there. Be offended, bitch about it, fine. But please don't demand it be taken down. If we demand it be taken down, then we're doing nothing but losing culture. Look at how much we've lost from the Egyptians. How many pharaohs have taken away the history of pharaohs who were inscribed on obelisks and other things like that. I mean, we've erased history just to preserve our ideals and our beliefs. Why can't we leave it there as much as we can? I mean, because sometimes we have to make room because there are more people now, and that's fine, whatever. But move it. Don't destroy it. Set the two opposing ideas side to side. Draw the core from both of those things. Put them together and see what they're both talking about. The reason Buddhism got rid of a personal God, or any God, any form of God, was because they made it an idol. And that was 600 years before Christ. That's not to say that God doesn't exist, but God's not a personal, meaning person-like entity. God is nothing more than a word that we use for another word that we use for it, the universe. It is everything that we can ever observe and experience and know, and it is everything that we can't. Just because we can't observe it doesn't mean it's not within itself. It's not. You can't be without yourself. Meaning outside of. Because if it is, since we come from the source, whatever name you want to give it, since everything comes from the source, that source is there, obviously. But that source is no different, which is to say it's not separate at all from what that source is spewing forth. It's not. It can't. Because then, if you extrapolate that out, it's still within there, and if it's the source, it's exactly part of it. Your mother and your father are half and half you. You are half and half your mother and your father. Yet you are a totally separate entity, but you are totally integrated to them, and they are totally integrated within you. Go ahead and hate the devil. That's the point of the devil. The devil's there for that reason. But leave him there if you are going to use, if you have the intention of turning good to evil, which is what the teachings say. Turn the evil into good by having the eyes and ears and tongue to do so. If you're not willing to take that painful step and do that, then fucking ignore it. Whatever. It's a statue. Let these idiots get all rabble-roused about it. Let them do it. If you choose to be part of the rabble-rousing, that's fine, and that's part of it too. That's okay. I'm not saying to not be offended. I'm not saying that you shouldn't demand this thing to be torn down or removed. I'm saying realistically, if you're trying to put forth a message of good versus evil, why not give or let the example of evil remain so that you can go, hey, this is what it is. Look at how in awe that kid is over the things that are going to kill it before it dies. That's the question. Why not do that? That is how God will be preached from the stone. Even if that stone, like I said in the text, is nothing but a heart filled with false teachings. Why not? And if you want to cycle into, well, I'm not saying anybody would, but it seems to me that there would be a tendency for people to say, well, the evil's there and it will perpetuate. Yeah, well, I just answered that by saying, why not leave it there and compare the two? I mean, because if we have the Ten Commandments, which should never have been brought down, they should never have been put up as an idol, as such. But it should definitely be there, because we learn from those. Those Ten Commandments actually are meant to show what we cannot do. We cannot follow any of those Ten Commandments, and that's why they are there. We can kid ourselves, but there's no way we can follow any of those Ten Commandments to the fullest extent of what they mean. Yes, there are going to be various degrees of that, so we cannot sit here and say, we cannot sit here and say, oh yes, well, one time this happened. Yes, once is not proof of the entire concept. Once is an anomaly, and it proves that it can happen. It is. There's an ability within everybody, within everybody for that to happen. Whether or not that's awakened is a different question. But we wouldn't know what good is unless we had evil. And evil is only what's not good for the individual or the culture within which the individual lives. It's necessary. Again, I'm not saying don't be offended. I'm not saying don't demand that it be torn down. I'm not saying don't try to abolish Satanism. Equally, to everybody else who would be outside of that, don't stop fighting. Don't demand that they don't be torn down, whoever they are. You know, if you are viewed as the evil ones, don't stop demanding that they be torn down. There needs to be that fight. That's how we progress toward the peak. Peaks are positive. We do fall from those peaks. That's the nature of the peaks and the valleys. It's going to happen. We cannot stop that. That is the nature of the big beast. I mean, if the rock is the beast, then so is existence itself in every facet. Keep fighting the good fight. Make sure you know what that good fight is. And don't assume that you do know what that good fight is. If you want to teach the good word, that goes against what that statue represents, demand that it's torn down. I beg you to demand that it's torn down, and I thank you for being offended. But I also submit to you, as I have quite a few times now, that it should also be left there to be torn down symbolically. That's more effective than having a statue removed. How does it exist? By removing himself, by convincing the world that he's not even real. And if we ignore the fact that the devil is real, that's how we empower him. And if we try to make him seem lesser than what his purpose is, if we try to reduce the nature of the devil by getting rid of him entirely, then he has won. Same with God. If they get rid of God, whatever God you want to hold, and also whatever Satan you want to hold, but if you want to get rid of the devil, if you want to get rid of God, the best way to do that is to fight against him where he's visible, because he only exists if he's visible. I say he, and that's not fair. It's not even fair to say he for the devil. It's unfair. You're cutting out many other aspects of that of a given entity, of that magnitude, by saying he, or by saying she. It's the word "it" is closer, as far as the English language goes. But if you want to fight the good fight, give us something to watch. I mean, that's what we're doing anyway. You know, we're watching. We have so many of us have short attention spans because we have so many things to fucking watch. Everything's in battle with each other, and that's what the devil is. You know, everything is in chaos. The devil is chaos, God is order. But then, the higher aspect of God is just being in and of itself. Being, with a capital B, being itself. So again, do not stop begging for this thing to be torn down. Do not stop calling this thing evil, or evil's not the word. It's the evil's not evil enough. Don't stop fighting against it. Don't stop fighting for the good. Plus or minus an O. But if you want to do the job properly and have people understand what the hell you're saying, you have to give them a demonstration. Most of the time. Again, I submit to you that leaving the devil there next to the Ten Commandments, I'm not sure if they're there now. If they're not, that's not a big argument. You don't have to go through and explain to me that they're there or they're not there. That's beyond the point, and you're still giving power to the devil you're trying to fight. We should have them both together. Here's these two things. And here are all these things that we would consider to be in between. Whether they're atheists or agnostics or the Hindus or Buddhists or whatever, it's all there. Keep them there in some aspects so that we know the difference. Let it be. The Beatles are right. I mean, I hope I haven't lost anybody. I wouldn't be surprised if I have. I'm going to repeat myself verbatim a final time and then end this. Don't stop fighting for that statue to be down, to be torn down. Don't stop fighting for there to be just the Ten Commandments. Also, same thing to the other side. Satanists, don't stop demanding that that thing stays up. And don't stop demanding equality with those Ten Commandments as far as equal stage time. One of the two is going to lose. and we know which one is going to lose. But it will cycle back and happen again. And I'm not saying reincarnation and all that, cosmic rebirth and Big Bang. That's not what I mean. Just it will cycle again. It happens within every society until it reaches an equilibrium. Then it collapses, and then it goes extinct, and then there's another one born in its place. That's what's going to happen. So it doesn't matter what you want to do, and it does matter. Absolutely, it matters. It matters what you want to do. We speak it into existence, even without our mouths. But make sure you do it in the right way. Have the eyes, the ears, the tongue, and the brain to do it in a way that is effective rather than foolish. Foolish meaning fooling yourself and fooling others at all. I regret that there is pain in the world. I regret that God brings, the idea of God brings pain to people. I regret the idea that the devil brings the idea, brings pain in, the idea of the devil brings pain into people. But it has to be, and there's no way around it. We have no choice over that. We cannot speak that out of existence. It has to die itself. It has to die naturally, of itself. But it will be reborn. It will be. So fight. I'm begging you, fight against it. With all of your heart, all of your strength, and all of your mind. Also, fight against it in the proper way. I'm pointing to a statue that doesn't exist. Because it's behind me. In a sense. But make sure you fight that. Like I said, fight that fight properly. You have to have an image of what you're fighting against in order to fight against it. If we're going to fight this way, especially if you're going to have people back you. There's an image that was under debate. The Ten Commandments. That image is there. Now the image of Satan is also there. We have the images of the things that are being fought for and being fought against from both sides. We can't have a fight if there's no enemy. And if we can't see what we're fighting against, at least on some level, we lose. But if we fool ourselves into the false images of those, well, and these are idols. The Ten Commandments as written and read, meaning if you have the Ten Commandments on a piece of paper and you hold that scripture, meaning that piece of paper, to be holy, you have an idol. If you hold the cross, if you hold a cross in your hand, and then you hold that cross to be holy, you have an idol. What it represents is a different thing. But we're confusing that statue for what it represents. That statue is just a fucking statue. It's metal, and probably wood, sitting there being looked at and yelled at and spit upon. And spit upon doesn't mean that it shouldn't be spit upon. I'm just saying it was the emotion conveyed by the spitter. It was spit upon. Then they become idols. It's a fucking statue. Fight against what it represents by leaving it there so that we can see what we're fighting against. And if they don't understand what they're looking at, explain to them properly what we're fighting against and what they're looking at. But don't define it in terms of things that people wrote down a long time ago. Define it in in terms of today. The idea, the concept, the point is still there regardless of the language or the time. But speak to people in a language they can understand. That's why they got rid of the these and the thous and the... Because, I can get into the whole Old English thing and give you an entire language lesson on that, and that's for a different time if it becomes necessary. There's a reason we changed. There's a reason that the language within the King James, the Authorized Version, has been altered so many times for a positive effect, so that people can understand more clearly. That doesn't mean that we've gotten the translations correct 100% of the time at all. We know that we haven't. Again, 666, we found the oldest book that we found, it says 616, and we know based on the traditions of the time that middle number is interchangeable for the same reasons that the name of what we think is Yahweh was left out. That's actually how we came up with Jehovah. If we transliterate the pronunciation, same thing. If we pronounce in English what the Hebrews say, Yahweh, we come up with Jehovah. And that's, again, a different thing that I will probably get into in a different rant. In the same way that, for the same reason, rather, that we don't use the images of the dead in war anymore, because we can't handle it. We've separated ourselves from reality in that aspect. But for the same reason that we have increased our fear and backslid from the reality of death, most of us, is because we've literally separated ourselves from it. We don't see pictures of it, and when we do see pictures of it, we see, watch the news, we see a blurred out picture of a white blanket. That white blanket's covering a body, but even still, even if there's no blood, we blur out the image of the white blanket. And we don't take photos with our dead family members anymore. Again, I grew up after a time when that was acceptable. But it might do us some good to deal with the dead for more than the time in which a funeral or a wake, or both, in total, are held. I mean, we're fine with squishing a bug. Well, even that's not even allowable on TV anymore, but left field. Fight the good fight the way that you feel, the way that you know it needs to be fought. But make sure that if you're going to fight the good fight and show everybody what you're fighting for, show them what you're fighting against. And the best way to do that is to leave the idol there, but not give that idol the power. This is what this thing is about, and here's what we're against. Join me or not. And if they don't, then I demand that you realize that that is a slap in the face to you. But turn the other fucking cheek as you walk away, and not allow yourself to be hurt anymore, and not allow you to hurt yourself anymore by wasting your time with them. And I don't find this as a waste of time. I'm not arguing with anybody. I'm saying to keep doing what you're doing. But and I'm not saying that I am correct at all. I'm not saying that I am correct at all. I'm not saying that I know anything. I'm saying what seems truest, what seems true to me. And I cannot find any way out of that truth. And I am the biggest skeptic that I know. That's why I am the biggest asshole that I know, and at the same time, the nicest person that I think I can be. I know many, many nicer people. Many, many people who are far, far better in every aspect of life. I'm not a good person. But neither are you. Or you. Or you. Or you. Or you. Or you. Or you. I just don't know where you're sitting right now. And again, I realize that there's probably the same two people who were going back and forth. Probably the third person is watching this. But there's no animosity here. I'm not asking you to change. I'm asking you to make sure that you're putting your message forward in the way in which you really, really mean. And if what you really, really mean is that there's an evil statue that does harm because it is the embodiment of evil, then all you're doing is giving them that statue power that it never had. And you're giving birth to the devil in a very real sense. And if people can't see that, and if others can't see that difference between what you're trying to do and what it looks like you're doing, then you have become the devil, and you've given them false teachings. Even if you're going on the side of God, if you're doing it the wrong way, you're giving them false teachings. But fret not, that will also put forth the idea of good. They will prove the reality of what good is. But again, a lion eats a cub that's not his own, and that's just nature. But if I want to strangle the red-headed stepchild, that's evil. Yes, they're both evil in this, they're both evil in the way that we understand it. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not saying that they're not. But we don't recognize them as the same thing. They're both the same part of nature. They are no different from each other. Whether we call them good or evil or neutral. Nature and neutral. That's not a mistake. They sound different. That's only because of language differentials and vowel shift. Again, that's the other video. In fact, Maya, meaning illusion, is where we get the word mother and reality and matter from. Anyway, that's the third video. I am hopeful that each of us carry on the proper path, but I also know that we have no choice but to do that, because that is in our nature. If that right path, that correct path, is the path of evil, that's only because that's endemic to your nature. If that path is good, that's endemic to your nature. And that's only based on the perspective of other people and what is most likely to keep you alive. And I mean that in the spiritual sense, meaning happy, not even happy, joyful, which they meld into each other, but they're separate things. Just like God and the devil. Just make sure your message is clear and true. And I mean, true doesn't mean true or false. It means complete. And by that I mean make sure you're not fooling yourself. And I'm not saying that anybody is. I'm not saying that at all. But just be sure that you have exactly what you want to say on the tip of your tongue. Don't prepare it, just sort of load up. You can fill a magazine of a gun without cocking it, or chambering around. You can chamber around without cocking the gun. Don't go off half-cocked. whoever's watching this, I say this from a point of love. I don't care if it's somebody watching this 100,000 years from now and they can't even understand what I'm saying. I do love you. Whoever you are that is watching this, I love all of you. It may not feel as if I do. It may not sound as if I do. But I love you all. And I want you all to be okay within yourselves. Make sure that you enjoy your life. And you can only do that if you're putting forth the exact truth that you mean to put forward. But you cannot do that unless you truly know what you're talking about. And it's amazing how often we think we're doing all of that without having any idea how short we fall of what we mean and what we intend. Not that we don't know, not that we don't have it in our heads or in our hearts, but the language in and of itself is a failure for it fails to transmit the core of the idea. Otherwise, it wouldn't be going on for an hour and 6 minutes now, and 22 seconds. It's because language is so feeble. And at once I feel like I felt a long time ago, as far as this video is concerned, that I made my point. But I will never ever feel that, nor will I ever believe that I have made myself perfectly clear. And I'm curious to see how many people degrade back into how evil the actual statue is, because it's the statue of the devil, rather than people granting it that power. To put it another way, how many people are going to miss the message of what I'm trying to put forward and continue to call the actual statue the real embodiment of the devil, and fail to realize that when they do that, all they're doing is giving that statue, which is no different than a rock, power that is beyond supernatural, that is only within the person who deals with the devil as such, through that statue. And that only happens within them. Look at the picture of that horn human thing. Look at that. That's evil. That it's a rock in a certain it's a statue in a certain shape. That's it. What it conjures into mind for a Christian or for anybody who has the background or the knowledge of the history of that, that's what they're going to see. What's a Greek going to see? Let's assume somebody who was totally immersed in Greek mythology, who's never known any iota and title and jot are all the same word, for the smallest part of the letter. Specifically, what we use, the title, is what we call it in English. The title is the dot over the letter I. Title, jot, yod. Yod is the first is in the word Yahweh. Yod. Give the devil his due. Grant unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God what is God's. Give the devil his due. But don't confuse them and don't overinflate them. Don't give a certain hunk of metal in a certain form the power of the devil itself. Because when you do, you're playing God. And hence you become the devil. That's exactly what the devil does. The devil assumes to be God. Or assumes that one day he will be higher than God. Or that he knows it's the same amount as God. Or that he will tear down God from the heavens. And again, I'm not talking about a personal, which again means person-like entity somewhere beyond. It's a very real thing. Not supernatural, not beyond the real. It's a very fucking real thing. Namaskaram, Vaikundus. And I do love you. And I mean everybody who's watching.